control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere. Watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Feel your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Superman, that we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command, 'cause women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Said the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott, and thank you so much for being with us at Spaced Out Radio and on Spreaker. We really appreciate you tuning in as we come in from the frozen Canadian tundra, battle our way past the wild animals, sidestep Bigfoot, and enter Uncle Jimbo's cabin, stoke the fire, heat this place up, and broadcast you live on this Thursday night, early Friday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at SOR, we do this thing 3 hours a night, 7 days a week. We want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the supernatural, paranormal, conspiratorial, ufological, and so much more. Spaced Out Radio's theme music is brought to you by guitar god Ron Bumblefoot THAL. You can find all of Bumblefoot's music, including his new album, Little Brother is Watching, by going to our website, spacedoutradio.com. If you're a social media junkie like I am, you can follow me on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to, is Spaced Out Radio Show. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, as we do every night, we want to send a shout-out to our fans listening in on the SHR Media Network, in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles and the SOR Space Travelers, as well as Paranormal Forum. And if you're a fan of Spaced Out Radio, head to our website, because coming soon, the Space Travelers membership will launch. Only $5 a month, you can win prizes, take part in private group interviews, have a special section on our website, and so much more. Hey, we're going to give you a heck of a lot more than just access to our archives. Tonight's show is brought to you by Rivulet Reiki and Readings, providing healings in person or at a distance. PurplePlates.com, helping heal your body, mind, and soul. The official newspaper of Spaced Out Radio is the New Agora newspaper. And the Spirit Story Box is the official ghost hunting app of Spaced Out Radio. It's only available on the iPhone. Now, tonight we were supposed to have Rob Morphy from Cryptopia.us, but he had a little bit of a family emergency since his mother is struggling in her health at times. So we're going cold. We are going 100% cold tonight. So I'm opening up the phone lines nice and early to you. 702-302-4556. I'm still trying to track down a couple of guests here. I've got a couple messages out to see if somebody would like to join us tonight. But otherwise, we're going to do the whole 3-hour thing about you. It may sound tough. It may sound difficult. Hell, this is going to be a first for us. We haven't really had to do this in a long time. But sometimes, you know what? Life gets in the way. And there's not much you can do about it. I know Rob is the caretaker of his mom. He's a good guy. He has never, ever skipped out on this show, and I would never say that he is. The fact that I couldn't get a hold of him pretty much tells me that something bad is happening, or not too good. So it gets very difficult at times because he is very, very good to this show. He has always been a supporter of this show. He's a big fan of it. This is one of the only shows he does. Hell, they even post it on cryptopia.us, every interview that we do. So I don't see him playing the bail card or anything like that. It just doesn't make sense. I don't see how he would be doing it. So, the phone lines are open to you. 702-302-4556. Any topic you want to talk about tonight. And I'm good with it. I am very good with it. Why not? Why wouldn't I be? 'Tis the show where we talk about the weird, the strange, the wacky, and so much more. That's what I love about this show, is the spontaneity of it all. It just seems to happen. It seems to go in different realms. You know, you just kind of run with it. You kind of run hard with it. You kind of just see where it's going to go. And sometimes, like I said, you get nights like this where something happens. You can't get a hold of your guest. But that's okay. The show must go on. And the fun part, I got to tell you this, the fun part and the scary part at the exact same time is you're so prepared going into the show on what you're going to talk about that night that you really, really do not know which direction to take once everything gets kind of screwed up. So we're either going to make some seriously cool radio tonight, or we are going to absolutely sound like amateurs. I'm hoping we don't sound like amateurs. I really don't. But you just never know what's going to happen. Remember, if you were listening to this show and you're a member of Facebook, you can ask to join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook. This is where our main chat hangs out. It's facebook.com/groups/SOR Space Travelers. And this is where we run it. This is where we go. We get a bunch of people in there chatting about the show. They're very intimate, very interactive about what is going on a nightly basis. So that is what we are doing tonight. It's okay. We're going to have some fun. At times, we may be wondering, scratching our head, if this is really what we want to do. But it happens. I'm leaving the topics up to you. If you're in any of the chat rooms, pick a topic. Let's chat about it. Doesn't matter what the topic is. Or you can call in at 702-302-4556. That's just the way it goes. Not a big deal. Gail is saying, Dave, you and the show will be perfect. Well, we're going to do our best. You know what? We're going to have some fun. And we're running with it. I'm going to start off tonight's show with a little bit of Bigfoot talk. As you've heard me before state that I am a big fan of Bigfoot. I am someone who has seen Bigfoot. And yesterday, being the 36th anniversary of Mount St. Helens, I started wondering and seeing so many different stories in regards to Bigfoot being washed away by the mountain, because at a time not so long ago there was an area, and it's hopefully rebuilt since then, called Ape Canyon in Mount St. Helens. And apparently during the whole time when Mount St. Helens had literally half its mountain blow down, what happened was, there are people out there, and of course they never go by name, who say they were able to capture dead Bigfoot, injured Bigfoot, as they were looking for bodies in the aftermath of the disaster of Mount St. Helens. And if you think about it, that's pretty darn scary. Because what happened there was, when the whole mountain collapsed, it literally wiped out this Ape Canyon area. I mean, think about it. Half the mountain collapsed. And of course, we've all seen the disaster videos of that. I want to read you a story about what happened back in Ape Canyon. This goes back to 1924. In fact, July 16th, 1924. Fred Beck was a miner who claimed they shot and possibly killed at least one of the creatures, precipitating an attack on a cabin they were staying at, during which the creatures bombarded the cabin with rocks and tried to break in. Beck actually wrote a 22-page booklet on it in 1967. It was something that was a nightmare of his and that he never, ever got used to. They felt they were going to die. He identified the creatures as mystical beings from another dimension, explaining that he had experienced psychic premonitions and visions his entire life, of which the ape men were the only component. Legendary Roger Patterson actually interviewed Beck in '66 and printed it in his book, Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist? Beck had drawings, photos of the miners, a map, reprint of the newspaper story of the incident, plus reprints of 3 newspaper stories about subsequent spooky and Bigfoot-related activity. If you've never heard the story, it's freaky. These miners thought they were going to die. Their cabin was peppered, not with just small rocks, but with boulders. Eugene Braxton is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. We're going to be talking psychic world, everything like that. It's going to be interesting. But getting back to Bigfoot. If the government did pick up these bodies of these creatures, where did they take them? Did they take them to McChord Air Force Base? Did they take them someplace secretive? Did they fly them? Because, let's face it, it's only a hop, skip, and a jump from the borderline of Washington and Oregon into Nevada, which would get you right into Area 51. Did they take them there? It's quite stunning to see what happened with them. Because when that mountain exploded and wiped out that area, the rumors were there were dozens of bodies Some of them, or most of them, were dead. Some were critically injured. And then, like I mentioned last night on the show, there was that, I don't know, I'm going to call it hokey point that said that maybe healthy Bigfoot who survived it were actually helping the deceased and the injured into the Chinook helicopters, or into the net that the Chinook helicopters were holding. I don't buy that for a second. This is an elusive creature. But I do believe that the government probably did something about it. Probably whisked away those bodies. And it adds so many questions to what we are doing here in regards to Bigfoot. And what would the government have to do with wanting Bigfoot bodies? You can say that maybe they were trying to turn them into super soldiers. We know the Germans during World War II tested on the Jews and other prisoners of war in regards to that whole scenario of trying to build a super soldier. I'm going to get to another story that I find very interesting in regards to this topic. If you've ever lived near or been by in northern Nevada, the Battle Mountain area, here's another Bigfoot story, and we've mentioned this one a couple of times on this show. This story really took off in about 2004, 2005. But it looks like, according to reports, it happened in 1999. According to witnesses, is that they were battling a major forest fire blaze in Battle Mountain. And a gentleman named Tom Powell came across one of the firefighters who was there. The firefighter, of course, remains anonymous. Nobody knows who it is to this day. So we're having to take an unknown person at their word. But bigger investigators than myself have looked into this, and they think that there might be something there to it. The gist of the story is this. Giant wildfire happening in Nevada. Forest firefighters are out there trying to battle the blaze to keep it from burning down because they're very, very brave men. We see what's happening up in Fort McMurray, Alberta right now. There are hundreds of men and women putting their lives on the line trying to make sure that the entire area doesn't burn down, even though right now I think that fire is almost as big as some states in the U.S. And I'm not saying the larger states, I'm saying like Rhode Island or something like that. But they're battling this forest fire. And what happened next was very interesting to the firefighters. It looked like this man was walking out of the forest fire, singed and burned, smoking. And the anonymous government employee alerted his superiors about this. The victim, said to be about 7.5 feet tall, had multiple burns on his hands, feet, legs, and body, some second and third degree burns. So they started treating him, or the rescuers ran up to him and started treating him, putting him out, dousing him with water. And the Bigfoot kind of just saw that his game was up. And if he wanted to survive, he just kind of collapsed and gave up. So they ran over to him, put him out, made sure he was okay, wrapped him up, sedated him from his injuries. And it got scary from there. Here's a direct quote from this anonymous employee. I observed an animal wounded by fire moving on all fours, not like a bear, more like an ape. Firefighters captured the animal, contacted a local vet and medical doctor. U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife, Department of Interior, and Bureau of Land Management came on the scene. The animal was tranquilized, put in an unmarked vehicle, and taken to an unknown location. Everyone at the scene was told not to talk about anything they saw. His description of the animal was approximately 7.5 feet tall, human-like arms and legs, face not like a man or an ape, but a mix in between, male genitalia, uncircumcised and human-like, hair covering most of his body except the chest. Chest has hair, but sparse. Hands with sparse hair. Palms are bare, with 5 digits of human opposition of thumb and a 5th digit. They attempted to communicate with caregivers, or the animal did, once it realized they were attempting to care for it. He had multiple burns on his hands, feet, legs, and body, as we went over. About 45% of his body was with burns. The doctor and the vet working together provided care and moved it to an unknown location locally. The notice given the violation of orders by the alphabet groups was strange. There were about 25 to 30 witnesses. Word is out, the government agencies among firefighters were called out. Many thought a firefighter was injured, but he wasn't. This person believes a cover-up was in the making and that the animal needed to be kept alive and studied and released into its protected area. However, they have no idea where it went. They have no idea who took them. They have no idea about what happened. That is scary. That is absolutely scary. What does the government want with Bigfoot? What do they need with Bigfoot? Why do they need Bigfoot? It is very interesting and tall-telling indeed. It just adds to the whole conspiracy that something is actually happening out there that we don't know of. That something is happening that we aren't supposed to know. And what does the government know about Bigfoot? And if the government is covering it up, I don't think it's for something as small as saying, well, we're not going to admit to it because we don't want everyone and their dog going out there hunting them down. We don't want that whatsoever. I don't believe that for a second. What I do think is what people like Eric Mothman, Lyle Blackburn, and other investigators have said on this show, that there seems to be something strange with Bigfoot. Something supernatural. And if these two incidents with cover-ups did happen, it adds a little mystique to the mystery of why the creature is never seen. Because if the government actually did this, put your tinfoil hats on for a second, because Davey here is going a little conspiratorial. If the government did do this, and that is the absolute truth, that they told people to cover up Bigfoot, I think it adds a lot of credence to what is the truth of Bigfoot. Whether it's supernatural, whether it's a spiritual animal, whether it has shape-shifting capabilities, whether it's interdimensional, or whether it's exoplanetary. That's a good word. We got to use that one more. Exoplanetary. We're going to go to a break here at the bottom of the hour. When we come back, Eugene Braxton will join us. We're going to get into some psychic talk. We're going to get into everything. Eugene's one heavy guy when it comes to the knowledge that he has. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this break.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Hi there. This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 Mediums and a Large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is Elizabeth Anglin, and on the last Monday of every month, I join Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's Cosmic Passport. We delve into everything from extraterrestrial contact to animal communication. It's a lot of fun, and every month it's something different and exciting. I would love it if you would join us. You can hear and learn from my experiences, and I'd like to know about yours as well. Cosmic Passport on spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm here to bring you the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night, live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for aliens and extraterrestrials, well, we've got them. Big and tall, short and small. You're bound to find what you're looking for, so join me on the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Have you ever wondered about those weird and strange creatures people have reported throughout history? Do you wonder if those stories are real? Me too, and that's why I started Cryptopia.us. Hey, this is Rob Morphy, crypto historian. Join me once a month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will get into the odd and bizarre reports, from the Dover demon to hairy hominids and everything in between. I will break down what people like you and me are seeing at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost?
Look no further than Spaced Out Radio.
SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click on to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on radio
or our website, including social media.
From commercial spots to banners, we have it all.
Check out our competitive pricing today.
Want to connect with us online? Find us on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, on Twitter, @Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, on YouTube, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. All right, space travelers, here comes the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you're listening in on the SHR Media Network, on Spaced Out Radio's chat room, on Spreaker, on Paranormal Forum, on Euphoria Chronicles, or if you're in the SOR Space Travelers, really appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Remember, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. On YouTube, where we hide our archives, you can follow us at Spaced Out Radio Show. Make sure you click on the subscribe button. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. We were supposed to have Rob Morphy on tonight, the crypto historian, and he never misses this show. So I'm a little concerned of what's happened because I know his mother has been battling some illness and he takes care of his mother. But the show must go on. We talked a little bit about Bigfoot right beforehand. And we've brought Eugene Braxton in. Eugene is not only a former guest on this show, but he is also a very, very intriguing author. Calls himself the American Mystic. I think it's a great story. It's about near-death experiences. Eugene is a very, very talented psychic medium. Eugene, thank you so much for being with us. How are you, my friend? We are doing very well on this show, and I want to say thank you for joining us at such short notice because you're that guy. You're always tuned into this show, whether we like it or not. Eugene is always there. And you have done a few interviews with James Tyson on Spaced Out Weekend, but this is the first time you and I have actually had a chance to chat in regards to this show. I'm kind of excited about this. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I like you as an interviewer. You ask some good questions. You let the guests talk, and you know a lot about the subjects. And yeah, I've definitely been wanting to be interviewed by you, Dave. Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask you this right off the bat. Why do you call yourself America's most experienced mystic?
That name came Dr. Charles Tart, who is the out-of-body world authority and levels of consciousness and out-of-bodies. He heard about me, and he said, I have often heard of this I have also heard of this American mystic. So, and I got a hold of that letter, email that he sent to a college student, and so he actually was the one who said American mystic, and I just changed it to America's most experienced mystic because the world authorities hadn't had a childhood psychic that they studied who had had so many paranormal experiences as I had in so many different events or so many different, experiences and so many different like haunted houses, dreams, lucid dreams, out of bodies, UFOs, all that stuff I had in heavy amounts. So the title was a good one, and you need something like to get the attention of researchers, scientists, the press, any of that. So back then, when I was just starting out, that helped. And then, so it was just a little title nickname. It's kind of cool and kind of catchy, and it described me better than a psychic. Because I'm more in the God-inclined way where it's mainly about him and all the psychic abilities and stuff come in just from seeking God. All that other stuff is just perks,
Eugene, when you first started having experiences, how old were you?
I was 6, Dave. Mm-hmm.
And what was that first experience that really set you on this path?
The first experiences were lucid dreams that were interwoven with out-of-body experiences, conscious out-of-body experiences. And I would have a lucid dream, then an out-of-body, then a lucid dream, or sometimes even a combination of them both, in addition to regular dreams and nightmares and stuff like that. So it's the dreaming path that got me started on this mystic path. And even from just a dream, a person can develop psychic powers or have a spiritual experience. It doesn't have to always be near-death, UFO, or anything else, but just from a simple dream. That's a good doorway for people to start if they want to get into the development of the psychic powers or the knowledge of the higher realms through dreams.
Eugene, when you started having these dreams at 6 years old, how did your parents react or family or friends react to you in regards to that? Because children at that age, let's face it, they're sloughed off as imaginary, or it was just a bad dream, or, it's just an overactive imagination. Were you treated like that, or was your family one that had a lifetime of experiences as well?
Yeah, Dave, thanks. That's a good question. Yeah, my parents were open to psychic experiences and acknowledged that it definitely was possible, and were open to seeing it or experiencing it. They went as far as dreams, but I had some, and I know I did, and it looked like Brother did at a younger age, although I don't think he was interested in that at all. But I had them, and with the dreams, see, also, Dave, my parents were friends of, family friends of Barney and Betty Hill, personal friends of them. As Barney was from Philadelphia and Dad was, they worked together at the Philadelphia Post Office. So they were open to the psychic things, and so were we as kids. We saw our parents were, so it was cool. But with the dreams, they started. What was the question you asked me about the?
Well, just about
early,
your family heritage with the experiences, if they really, really supported you with it and believed you.
Yeah, I didn't. No, I had the heaviest amount of outer bodies and dreams were from 6 to 16, and I told no one about that. I just kept that to myself. They knew I had sleep difficulties, would go to bed at 9:30, and then at 7 in the morning be dead tired as though I hadn't slept at all. And I had weird things like nosebleeds and all those kinds of sleep difficulties and disorders. But it wasn't fully recognized, and I didn't tell any of them about the sleep disturbances, no. So it wasn't until about, I was in my 20s, like maybe 22 or 23, before I even mentioned the near-death. But they knew I liked psychic things, and I had looked, a lot of times psychic things would happen in the house that I didn't recognize until later were psychic. Like, I had a younger brother who was kind of like the bad sheep. And so when explosions would happen in the house with him, I would get mad and light bulbs would go off. But I would think, it's just an electrical circuit or something. I remember things, light bulbs going off, electricity disturbances a lot. And, but the parents, I kept most of those things inside. Whatever did show outside was just taken normally, or that's how Eugene was. But I kept most of that stuff inside because there was some wild stuff happening, especially for the 70s, when you really couldn't even talk about UFOs or coming out your body without someone thinking you're crazy back then. Mm-hmm. And now it's normal to talk about, but in the 70s or the 60s, you could seriously get taken away in a white van if you started saying that, I talked to aliens or I got kidnapped by an alien. Because even they were just kind of having sightings and just starting to have abductions back then. So it was something that you didn't talk about like to authority people,
No.
So
and especially during coming out of the Vietnam War, where everybody was very, very sensitive to absolutely anything that was odd, strange, or anything that could be misconstrued at that time. I mean, I can just imagine what it would have been like for you to have to keep quiet about things like this.
Yeah, they were and I knew I was having them, and I knew I wasn't crazy. And like with the outer bodies, I got to where I could observe them. After 10 years, I knew it was going to happen. I got to where I could control them because out of habit, I saw what was going to happen. So I started to work with it. I could see the limits of what I could do and couldn't do in dreams too, and which like a dream can turn into an out of body. That's how I learned to have mine. And then once you start having like a dream or a lucid dream where you're more awake or an out of body, you'll keep having them. It in an experience starts what's called the occurrence. They become occurrence from where one experience begets another. And once you start having one legitimate psychic experience, even a small one, it'll bring on another, and then another, and then another. And in the teens, I didn't want those. I didn't want any sleep disturbances, falling dreams, any of that, nightmares. But I had asked for them when I was 9 in like a solemn prayer just between God and myself. I told him, if you would show me all that invisible stuff, I'll always tell people about you. And when I was 11, it started happening heavily. And it happened hard until I was 16, and then throughout my life, but especially the teenage years. But each psychic experience, especially like with an out-of-body or a dream or where your spirit comes outside of your body, flying dream, any of that, you pick up some of the electromagnetic energy that's in the air itself because you're in spirit form. And that magnifies the psychic abilities. There's a lot of ways the person can become psychic or boost their psychic abilities, but you get the most when you shoot only to have a direct union with God. A lot of people forget the God part, and they just want like the knowledge and the abilities. But you get all that and more if you go straight to God, and the other stuff will come automatically. But those things are really a distraction because there's so much more that the person can experience and know about than just like those psychic powers, moving a chair across the floor or reading someone's mind.
I've never moved a chair, Eugene. I'm not gonna lie. I've never moved a chair, but I do want to focus on the lucid dreaming for the time being, because for a lot of people out there, they've never had this experience. We've heard about it. I think I've had one a number of years ago. It was really weird. It involved my ex-wife while I was going through my divorce process, and it was funny because what I remember from that is I never felt asleep. I never felt like I was asleep. It felt very surreal, and she was apologizing in that dream for the things that she had done to hurt me. And I woke up the next morning feeling like I didn't sleep a wink. Now, I don't know. Was that just a lucid dream? Was that something that was just one of those odd sleepless nights that I didn't go into an REM state?
Was it a normal dream where it had certain events, or was it just like a one scene type of dream?
It seemed more like seemed like more of a one scene.
It sounds like it was a lucid dream. A lot of times the person's like awareness in a dream will fluctuate, or something might trigger the person to realize, wait a second, am I dreaming? Or to question this, like the reality of that situation in a dream. But it sounds like a lucid dream, especially if the person says it felt more, I felt more conscious in it, or it seemed more real. And the person himself would be the best person to judge, but it seems like a lucid dream. I wanted to see if it was like a one-scene type of thing, because that could sometimes be a future dream, especially if there are vivid emotions involved, or if there's like a normal sequential type of dream. And those dreams are interesting because they show you things, and it's actually like another dimensional dream world. Like in that movie, What Dreams May Come, they were actually showing not the afterlife. They were actually showing the dream world where you can have more control over things. A lot of people think that they have control in astral or out-of-body or spiritual things or abductions or afterlife, that they really don't. It's deep, but the dreams that's a perfect pathway. And once the person can understand and work with the dreams, they can continue. Then out of bodies come after that, and then with those two, all those other psychic things, you can start to read people's minds. But the dreams, that's the primary method by which human beings experience communication with the Creator, and that's a good way. It's a natural way to start. And if a person can awaken that dream center, they can keep going in that. And things experiences will magnetize themselves to the person, usually if they want it or not. It's just like that fall off from that cosmic energy that they get.
Eugene, what about people, though, because I'm one of also those people, and I know there's a lot of people out there like me who can't remember their dreams, because I rarely ever remember their dreams. That's why if I have a dream about extraterrestrials, I know I've been taken, because I couldn't tell you what I dreamt last night, the night before last, but I can tell you a couple weeks ago, as I mentioned it on the air, I remembered fighting aliens. These gray guys.
Fighting them, yes. I remember you saying that night.
Exactly. So, when I look at that scenario, it makes me then wonder, okay, if I'm someone who can't remember my dreams, like a lot of us are, does that mean that this dream is actually real and happening?
Not necessarily. A lot of times, there's a lot of, with like the UFO, the near-death, and some of the research we've done, we've seen that memory is one of the main problems in all of those things, in dreams too, and out of bodies. Like, there's problems in memory recall, memory retention, what the person can remember after they've woken up, the clarity of memory, how clear, and the accuracy of their memory. What exactly were they remembering, and was it an illusionary thing or actual thing? So the memory, but there's ways that the memory recall and retention can be upgraded and sharpened easily too, and for free and naturally. Like with, do you want me to go into any of this?
Yeah, go right into it.
Okay. Like one way that the person can have a better recall of their dreams, and in fact, you can, in some cases, you can recall the whole dream, and you'll see usually you're missing the majority. The person's missing the majority of dreams. But once the person's able to recall it fully, then they can determine if it was an out-of-body dream, a lucid dream, or a possible abductions, and they come through dreams too. That's an interesting thing with the alien abduction in dreams. But for the better, let me just get this clicker thing off. For the better recall with the dreams, there's a few things. First thing I would recommend is the person getting a journal book to put by their bedside, so that whenever they do wake up, because a lot of times people wake up in the middle of the night, or even if they wake up in the morning, they can jot down anything they remember. And usually just the jotting down of even just a few words or lines will pull out other dream memories as they're writing, because you'll write something down. And there's certain ways of waking up and going to sleep that will help the dream recall and to retain it too. Because the person actually wants, just like in a dream like yours, they want to recall everything fully in sequential order, and they want to have continuity of consciousness, which will allow them to be fully awake during the whole dream without any kind of lapses in consciousness. So there's things that the person can do before they go to sleep, and when they wake up. That's almost maybe the most critical thing, even more than writing it down. But writing it down kind of cements it so you can go back later. But when the person wakes up, first thing they should do when they wake up is close their eyes calmly and slowly. And then in the darkness, try to remember the last image of that dream that they had. And also when the person wakes up, you want to, if you can, stay in the same position that you could have stayed in, say, if you had the day off. And you know it's a Saturday or Sunday, you didn't have to get up. So once you wake up, you say, I'm off today, and you go back to sleep. So if the dreamer can stay in the same position when they wake up, that keeps them in that dream zone, because once you turn around, look at the alarm clock, or reach for a cigarette, or get a drink of water, or look to see if it's daylight out, then that dream kind of fades away once you start being aware of the normal world. But when you wake up, especially before you move, and if you can, before you open your eyes, if you can stay in that zone just for like a minute or two longer, you can remember a lot right then before you fully wake up than you could after you get up, go to the bathroom. But usually when most people wake up, they jump up, look at the clock. They might have to get to work, or they might have kids, or someone might wake them up. I hate that, being jolted out of a dream because someone decides to grab you or wake you or call you on the phone. But the way the person wakes up is critical. If they can not move when they wake up, and if they can, if they wake up with their eyes open and they open their eyes, to gently close them and go back into the last memory of the dream that you had and remember it in your head, and then go back to the scene before that. And usually you can trace your way back halfway through the dream that way. And there's ways where you go to sleep with breathing techniques and things like crystals under your pillow and silver. I used to wear silver rings for some really strong dreams. A lot of times, the breathing techniques may be the most important. And me and son used to sleep on the balcony just to get the full fresh air. And not only would we have full dreams that we remembered fully, Dave, but we'd wake up like 3 hours earlier. We would go to bed maybe 10:30 or 11:30. We'd wake up at 4, fully refreshed, like we slept 10 hours. So the air quality is really important in the breathing exercises. Right. When the person, before they go to sleep, and if you want, I can describe that now, or we can talk about that later too. But it's not hard to remember the dreams. Once you get in the habit of doing the breathings before you go to sleep the right way, and waking up in the right way and writing your stuff down, then you'll remember it more and more, and you'll get used to remembering it. And if you impress on your mind that I want to remember these dreams badly, you'll start to remember it too. But and then you'll see there's a lot in dreams that you didn't get to see because of those lapses in consciousness. And they can be, that continuity of consciousness can be strengthened and lengthened by doing some of these memory retention and memory recall, simple procedure protocols that are easy and that actually should be known. But that's some of what the dream and dream memory, because there's so much stuff in a dream that the majority, I would say, and even with life, the majority of stuff is that the most important things are the things that we can't see. And it's just deep with the dreams, but the more recall, the better. Like with the near death, it was mainly recall. I just remembered much more because I was used to those out of bodies and being out of my body. But once the memory thing is solved, and there's some easy ways to lengthen it and strengthen it, then a lot of the abduction answers and the near-death answers can be fully solved because the person will have fully remembered what happened. And there's spiritual illusions, but they can be overcome too. But that's an interesting thing, the dreams.
Eugene, I do have some questions from the Spaced Out Radio listeners. We'll get to those in the next half hour. But your information that you learned, and we only got a couple minutes before we go to break here, the information that you learned on your own here, did you study it? Were you taught it? Or was it all the reality that came through from your own personal experiences that gave you this knowledge?
It was a combination of both. It started with like a desire. I wanted to know about all that stuff badly, and really badly enough where I literally asked God while I was walking for it. So it started with a desire to want it, and then the experience part came in. And the experience led me to fully read and study all I could about it. That was maybe during the late teens to early 20s when I studied and I acknowledged having these abilities, and I wanted to study, learn all about them, and then enhance them. And in the 20s and 30s, I learned what I had and enhanced it, like in the 30s and 40s. I began to do whatever I could to boost it and jack it up more. But I learned a lot through reading. I learned just as much through experience. I'd say more through experience, and the reading kind of verified that what I had, especially when I was younger, was really happening, was right. And there's one good book for the listeners that they would love. It's about out-of-bodies. It's written by an American named Sylvan Muldoon back in the 20s. And I always mention him because he was so good. And he was the only one who knew as much about out-of-bodies as I do. And I've checked them all throughout the last 20 years, and really 30 years. But if they get his book, it fully explains every detail and how to have them and all the various kinds. He knew a lot, and that was way back in the 20s. They haven't had no one since him yet. And I would say he's even better than me. But what was the question, Dave? What were we...
It was about your knowledge in regards to you learn this.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let's hold on to that thought, Eugene, because we're going to go to a break here, and you're going to stick with us for a little bit. I'm hoping, fingers crossed. And
I can stay as long as you need.
Oh, thank you. And that's why you're a gentleman and just an awesome friend of this show. So Eugene Braxton is filling in tonight. We were going to have Rob Morphy on the air with Cryptopia.us, but Rob had an emergency he needed to take care of, so we are going to keep it at that. Eugene has graciously decided to step in. We're going to talk everything from dreams to psychic abilities to ET contact, near-death experiences. We have a lot that we can go through with Gene tonight because he is just a man with a plethora of knowledge. So that's what we are going to do. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. Hour number 2 right after this.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio on the Spreaker.com network.
Do you believe you've been in contact with extraterrestrials? Have you seen the Greys, the Mantis, or the Reptilians? I am Samantha Mullet, and on the second Tuesday of each month, you can listen and learn from my experiences with off-worlders on Spaced Out Radio's The ET Experience. With host Dave Scott, we'll sit down and chat about what's going on with our friends from other worlds. We'll also try to answer your questions, so please tune in on the second Tuesday of the month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners, for only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Spaced Out Radio. And we give it up to you guys, all the listeners and the live listeners. You can get something special and hang out in the chat room and and we love to have you. So we'll see you every Saturday night at 8 p.m. You know where.
If you're a fan of social media, you can follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, where our archives are stored, is Spaced Out Radio Show. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Tomorrow night on the show, David Guddy will join us. We are going back into the paranormal world to talk about hauntings. It's going to be an interesting show indeed tomorrow night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time as we wrap up the week. Remember, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. Make sure you subscribe to that. And, of course, everything that we do with this show can be found on our website, spacedoutradio.com. We are joined tonight by America's mystic, Eugene Braxton. Eugene's coming in really cold on this, like literally 2 minutes before we went on the air. I'm like, hey, do you want to come on? And he was like, yeah, sure. The reason our original guest, Rob Morphy, had an emergency, could not make it tonight. Rob is a monthly contributor on this show. But when he's not picking up his phone, I know there's an issue. So we're going to try and figure out what happened to him probably tomorrow. Hopefully everything is all right there. Eugene, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. You've been on this show a number of times, but you've always been on with James. This is the first time you're on with me. I'm kind of excited about it.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to talk to you on Spaced Out Radio too, Dave, because I like your interviews, and it's always good when you have a good interviewer. They ask good questions and can bring out the info. And so I definitely want to be interviewed by you, yeah.
Well, right before the break, we were talking about dreams, on how you learned all of this information. You were said it's a combination of both, between learning from people who were of knowledge of the topics that you needed to learn, but a lot of that information you learned from your own personal experiences. What did you gain from your own personal experiences? A lot of the psychic or paranormal experiences, a lot of it brought on like cosmic knowledge or divine revelations, information that you just automatically knew. And I don't use the word downloaded. I use the word like revelations, because it sounds more natural. It probably is. And sometimes what people call download might be actually a spiritual revelation. But with the direct experiences and the cosmic information that was revealed, whether it be through dreams or just consciously or through study, that it was, yes, a good combination of like the work, definitely working with the world authorities helped, the personal study, the experiences, and then the spiritual revelations where you just knew stuff or things just came together. A lot of that stuff out for years, and then you get used to it. I've been doing this now, it's 45, almost 50, 50 years now. So, and then 20 with the scientist, and so I've been doing it. I'm fully used to it, and I like it. You know, it's a good field to be in, the UFOs, studying all that stuff, being in, so it's a good field. It's almost as glamorous as the movie star field, because they're into all the UFOs and the paranormal stuff too. I think everyone is now, Dave. It's funny. I was having that same conversation with a friend of mine out of Las Vegas as early as yesterday about this, and he is very involved in the music scene. And one of the things that I asked him was, I said, why is it that people in music, or famous musicians of the big name bands, I'm not saying the bands that play at the local nightclubs, but I'm saying like big stadium type bands, are so connected to what is happening on the other side, whether it's paranormal, whether it's government conspiracy, whether it's having to deal with UFO phenomena or alien abduction or cryptids. We see so many rock stars having such experiences. And he said, he said two things. Number one, it's because an artist's mind is always open to experience. And number two, when you get to that level of popularity, people come to you, people of authority come to you and tell you things. You may not want it, but it happens. Have you noticed that as well?
Yes, yeah. With people telling me stuff or they're sharing their stuff, yeah, definitely. And with the artists and with the rock stars, musicians, they're half psychic or more naturally just from being artists, and so they're more likely to have it than a normal, milkman or football player, because they're half, just like a martial artist, he's kind of inclined that way too. But the artists, painters, musicians, they're more natural. They're almost, a lot of them are like uninitiated psychics, but a lot of them are really psychic, and it comes out through their art. So that's why I like artists, because and they care. Artists care about things more than maybe the normal Homer Simpson. And the artists get involved. They care about stuff. Here's a quote that about art, and it said that the goal of art is to provoke a reaction. And then it said the goal of the artist, it said if the goal of art is to provoke a reaction, then the goal of the artist is to create a work of art that can never be equal. And I thought that was a good quote. But we definitely need the artists. They're really psychic. And a lot of times they teach the people, like Don't Fear the Reaper, that song, about certain esoteric things. And they've had them. You can tell them from their drawings, from their music, from their words, and from their music itself that they've had the experiences. So they are kind of like teachers. Like Fleetwood Mac, they helped me a lot when I was a teenager. In the turbulent teens, get through that teenage thing, because their music just vibrated perfectly with what I was going through then. And so, yeah, those artists, they definitely need them with the spiritual world. They're very spiritual. I would say way more than a normal citizen.
I noticed that as well. I'm not going to mention the artist's name, but recently I had tried to get this famous guitarist on the air with me, because he had a paranormal experience where he actually filmed a ghost in his house on his security cameras. Now, this guy is like totally into horror. He is totally into that type of genre of being freaked out, scared, and he was so stoked that he actually had a paranormal experience in his house that he put it all over social media. And I'm trying to get him. I'm efforting. I'm not mentioning his names because I got my fingers crossed, the rabbit foot, the bowl of Lucky Charms behind me, and everything. But it's amazing how it all ties in to when your mind is open, Eugene, the possibilities of things happening, rather than trying to put your own human opinion on it, are really endless, aren't they?
Yes. Like you said, the open mind. And that's the most important thing.
Exactly. Eugene, I want to get to a couple of questions here that have come in. The first one from June in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. He's wondering, sometimes in random times of the day, like for a split second, June will have a mental picture of a dream that he once had. Then it disappears. It almost feels nostalgic. What is that about?
It sounds like a dream flashback, but usually when you get those kind of pictures, it's almost like something telling you. It's like a message more than a picture, especially if you get them repeatedly about the same dream. Could you read it once more, Dave, that question?
Absolutely, I can. He's basically saying that in random times of the day, for a split second, he'll have a mental picture of a dream that he once had. Then it's poof, it's gone. He feels the nostalgia behind it, and he's wondering what that's about. I'm curious, would you say that that is almost deja vu happening? Or is that a lucid dream coming while he's awake?
It seems more like a type of lucid dream memory. Like, remember I was talking about how the person, things are revealed? A lot of time images and pictures are revealed. Sounds like because if it were deja vu, it would not have happened yet. You know? Usually deja vu is when the person goes into a scene and it reminds them of something that they felt or that they felt happened already. But since that didn't happen yet, it sounds more like a spiritual memory of a dream. Sometimes it might have been a recollection of a forgotten piece of memory of a dream that suddenly bubbled up in his consciousness while he was awake. But you say that he remembered that particular scene, right?
Yeah, he's basically saying like he'll almost get flashbacks to that dream.
It's weird. He should check out what the flashbacks are and see how they may relate to him now. Because if he's getting, it sounds like he may be getting different flashbacks from the same dream, but it's something's telling him like to look at pieces of that. I would try to reanalyze the dream if he can remember it. Whatever he can remember, try to reanalyze. Because if he's getting these flashbacks of that one particular dream, then there's something in that dream that he needs to check out. That's what I would say. Okay. Especially if it's alerting him like that. Okay, seems like something's alerting him.
But Gene, where does deja vu come into play then? Because I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people are confused by that. I get deja vu every couple of months. I'm sure a lot of people out there do. You probably do as well. And it confuses the living heck out of me.
That is a weird thing and a weird feeling when it's happening now. Like, I think, I'm from Philadelphia, but I used to live in Ohio. But before we moved to Ohio, I had a dream of, when we went to Ohio, I went to see the junior high I would go to. And when I went in, I said, I've been here before, and I knew where every classroom was. And I knew that I had been there, even though I had never even been in that state. So that deja vu is a weird thing. It's like sometimes the astral body will fly a couple of months in advance to a location that it knows where you might be. Like my higher self might have known that in June or September of 70 that I'd be in Ohio. And maybe in the spring of 70 or the winter, I had that future. It's like a future dream. It's like a memory of the astral travel. But it seems like deja vu is where the portions of the person's spirit or subconscious travels ahead into the future and sees something, and then when the person comes back in real time and experiences that future memory, it trips them out because they've partially been there, but logically they have never been there, you know? So a part of them has been there because they recognize it. And like sometimes when you have deja vu, you know what's going to happen, you know what the person's going to say next, you know? And you know what they're going to do next. And I've told people, look, you're going to do this, or this will happen, or the clock will, and it happens. So I think it's like a future memory that a part of you had already experienced, and then the physical part of you is catching up with in time. That's what I think deja vu is. Or else it could be a genetic memory, but I think it's more like the astral or spiritual self already participating or viewing that over in the future, and then you experiencing it later on physically. I think that's just part of the person's self. The spiritual self knew in advance what was going to happen, and then the physical self catches up and recognizes that. That's what I think deja vu is. You know, a portion of the person seeing in advance and going there, and then later the person physically experiencing what the spiritual aspect of them already went through. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, I still don't like when it happens because I hate being able to know a scene that I'm in that I've already lived in a dream. I can't stand it. It drives me absolutely crazy when that happens. I got a question from Galen in the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook. She is asking, her dreams only warn her if her life is in danger. Would you know why that happens?
Yeah, because I mean the thing that warns the person whether it be a dream or I once had like a voice yell at me right before I was getting ready to get hit by a car, and I stopped, and I didn't get hit. But that voice that warns you, the inner you, is really your higher self. It could be also God, depending on the voice, but it's usually your subconscious. And the subconscious is like the spiritual aspect of the person, and it's also that side of the person that will live on after death. And its goal is really, even though it's more powerful than the conscious being, its goal is to always serve and protect the conscious part of man who is in charge of the spirit. So that spirit is kind of like the genie in the Aladdin's lamp. We actually have a super powerful helper with that subconscious side. That subconscious would be like the mind of our spirit self. That would be like our subconscious. And when the person begins to communicate their conscious mind with the subconscious mind, and that can be done well through dreams, because the subconscious speaks in symbols and in pictures and in feelings and emotions. When the two minds meet, then you can do a lot of stuff. And that's what the person wants to do. Be on the lookout for messages. When they're conscious, be on the lookout for messages from the subconscious. And when they're whether they're asleep or in the spiritual self, look for messages from the conscious world. You want to be active in two worlds, especially you want the two minds to interact. Mm-hmm. So a lot of days it's good to not to be nonverbal. And like Larry Hagman, the guy who was on I Dream a Genie, used to go for a full 24 hours, maybe even a week, without saying anything. And you pick up on a lot of stuff. If you ever try that, that's a good way to start to practice to read someone's mind. When they're talking to you, just don't say nothing, just fully listen. After about 30 seconds, like their words will kind of dim out, or the volume on the words will, and you'll be able to just pick up on their real intentions, and they can feel you. So it's an interesting thing, but you definitely want to always listen for any messages. And that's why that voices came to her about the dream warnings, because the subconscious warns you, and it warns you way in ahead of time, so you have time to get away. And it'll warn you a few times. But always listen to that inner self, because that's the higher you just telling you what to do. And it comes in a certain steady feeling each time. And it may not be a loud voice. It may be something soft, but definitely listen to that higher side, especially if it keeps tapping you in your shoulder.
I want to get into that voice for a little bit, Gene, because I have had good and bad with that voice, and more bad until I realized where that voice was coming from. And I have kind of made my own little terminology about that's the soul voice coming through. Because the soul, to me, is the last thing we have as human beings that is still connected to God or a higher being, whatever you decide out there to believe in. Me, personally, I believe it's God. Okay, so when I didn't listen to that voice, I started looking back and seeing how many bad things have happened. But there's a lot of people, Gene, who get that voice confused with the voice of the heart or the voice of the brain. So for those people who are getting the soul voice confused, how do you know which one is talking to you?
That's a real good question, David. That's why I wanted you to be interviewed by you, because a lot of times the interview can ask such a good question or get such a good question from the audience that makes the guest fully think, and it makes him think more. Good questions are good to be answered. So once again, what is the difference? Could you just say the question again, Dan?
Well, I'm going to put it a different way. The soul voice, that is still connection to the higher power. But we have a lot of people who, if you go on Facebook, you see these memes all over the place, or memes, or whatever the hell you want to call them, where, it says, listen to your heart. Listen to that little voice in your head. Yet, I have friends who listen to that voice in their brain or the voice in their heart, and it's nothing but heartbreak and heartache. But if they don't, they don't know how to listen to that soul voice. And what I'm trying to tell my friends who ask me about spiritual advice is, if you can't listen to that soul voice, you're not going to be able to find the direction you need to go. Because that's the one that points you out of danger. It points you in the right direction. If it comes to a fork in the road, it's going to tell you which path to take. But why do so many people, Eugene, have trouble hearing that soul voice?
That's a good question. And there's people, just like you said, like you and others who do listen to the soul voice and work with it and continue to just succeed, whether it be personal or professional. But a lot of people might not. A lot of people might actually be listening for an actual voice, and a lot of times the actual voice does come, but a lot of times it comes as a feeling. Like definitely people would know that the heart voice would come as a feeling, and the person always wants to watch in spiritual things that any kind of excess of feelings, whether they be high or low, and I'll explain that why later. But the heart one would be definitely one of emotions, and that counts too, because the emotions, like a lot of businessmen will go by their gut feeling. They'll let the salesman ramble on, and then they'll take him in non-verbally and see how they feel. That's a good way to go too. But the way to distinguish between all of those is that they would come at different levels. Like the highest one, the soul voice, would warn you only or inform you only of the most important things. The mental voice would kind of make logic, kind of like figure it out rationally. And you need that cerebral part of you too to balance off against the feelings, because you definitely want to go with the feelings, but you also want to try to logically figure it out and see if it would be right with that mental voice. And but just like the person goes to a carnival and there's 2 balloons, and underneath the balloons is like a number, and if you pick the lowest one, you win, or the highest. So whatever you're trying to feel which balloon has the right number. And usually the first feeling that you feel, that's the right one. But a lot of people second guess and say, no, 7, when they really felt 3, but they were afraid to say it, thinking they were wrong. And then they turn it over and they saw it was 3. So usually it's that first automatic response without thinking that's correct. And if the person practices it, you can get it right every time. And a good way to practice that is get a deck of cards and turn them like face down. Then ask yourself or the other player, what color is that card? And whatever they say, if it's right or wrong, they'll begin to develop a feeling of how it feels when they know they're right. And if you practice that game, eventually you move on to guessing the numbers, like me and my son used to do. And usually out of 4 tries, we could usually always get the right number, and we could almost always get the right color. So there's ways to develop, but they just want to listen to all the signals that come from themselves, whether it's an emotional signal, a mental one, whether they're trying to deduce it logically, or that super conscious, like God soul type of voice, because that'll only be used for strong emergencies and critical things. And then the other, the spiritual, subconscious, and the conscious, the other voices would be for more the detailed stuff. But it's good because a lot of people don't even listen to their inner selves at all. It's just the one-dimensional self, that conscious self that really can't do nothing compared to your subconscious or the soul self. But if you can get all those, and the person has 3 minds, in the mental, the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious, that soul, that the one that's connected with God. Ideally, what the person wants to do is bypass the subconscious and go straight to the God consciousness or the soul consciousness. And that's where you get automatic knowledge about things you didn't even know about. And somehow you know how to do it, a turbine engine. But the person first has to learn about the subconscious, and the dreams are a good way to learn about the subconscious and normal working life. But getting in touch with your feelings is really getting in touch with your subconscious, because it works not verbally, but it works like non-verbally with feelings, pictures, thoughts, emotions. And that's a fairly good way to distinguish them. The highest one will be really important. The subconscious will always be there, and it'll nudge you softly. The higher soul consciousness may be a full announcement, where a voice of authority or a feeling of extreme urgency. And the subconscious will nudge you and prompt you more gently, and then the conscious mind will try to, it'll try to figure it out itself. But it's better if you can rely on the 2 higher minds. but the conscious mind is the boss. And the subconscious, which is more powerful, has to do with what the conscious person says. So a person says, I can do anything I want because, and in a way that they can, except everything has limits, but once you get in tap with that subconscious, with your spirit's mind, and you connect it with your conscious mind that has the will and the direction, you can do a lot of stuff. But by that time, a lot of the things in this world won't be of interest. You'll be into things of a higher way, whether it be helping people or getting more knowledge or developing your relationship with God or yourself. But it's all that's really interesting and worthwhile. All that, but that's how you can distinguish some of the different levels of minds and their warnings.
Right. Eugene, we're going to hop out for a break, and I want to continue with this soul voice thing here right after the break, and then we'll get into a little bit more with NDEs, OBEs, ETs, and I don't know what else we can get into. We'll figure out the initials for it. Eugene Braxton is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking everything to do with the subconscious, connection, enlightenment, and alphabet letters. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Fairies? Bigfoot? Dogmen? Trolls? Goblins? Hey, if it's cryptid in any way, I'm looking into it. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, also known as Spaced Out Radio's Crypto Guru. Join me every second Wednesday of the month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will talk about the stories people call tall tales. I will fill you in on the latest sightings and the hidden histories that are causing quite a stir. You can find everything at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com/rivuletrndr, or my Facebook page, Rivulet R&R, to set up an appointment for relaxation, Reiki, or readings, no matter where you are. It's time for you to make time for you.
Would you like to expand your clientele? Have you ever thought of online radio advertising? Check out spacedoutradio.com to get your name out there. Our listeners support those who advertise with us, so why not give it a try? We have the most competitive advertising prices out there. Just click on the advertising tab on spacedoutradio.com and contact us today.
Are you an ET experiencer, but you just don't know what's going on? Are you too timid or shy to discuss it with anyone? Maybe I can help. Join me, R. Keith Andrews, the first Friday of every month on Spaced Out Radio, and I will help you to find the answers you're looking for. Together, I will help you understand the off-worlders and the true meanings behind your experiences. All you have to do is join us in the Spaced Out Radio chat room. See you there.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up, enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Tomorrow night on the show, we'll be talking hauntings and paranormal. David Gutty, author, will join us tomorrow night about hauntings in his own home. He wrote a book about it. It's going to be very interesting indeed, a great way to round out the weekend. Hey, if you're on social media, do me a favor. Pass it around. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, where we store our archives, is Spaced Out Radio Show. Subscribe to that. And our website, where you can find all our information, is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking dreams, that little inner voice, OBEs, NDEs, ETs, and probably get into a little GNR as well. I just want to throw that in there. Eugene Braxton is our guest. He is known as America's most experienced mystic. Eugene, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure, man.
It's no problem, Dave. I love Spaced Out Radio.
We love it too. You know what? I think about it every day. I think about it more than I do my daytime career. And sometimes that gets me in trouble, but that's okay. The boss hasn't caught me yet. He hasn't caught me cheating his time. And knock on wood, that doesn't happen yet. Right before the break,
yes.
Eugene, right before the break, we were talking about that little voice in our heads that is really, really annoying. It's loud. It's aggravating because it's not afraid to tell you, I told you so. And when you start following that voice and realizing that it's pointing you in the right direction rather than the wrong direction, as, say, the heart or the brain would, it's actually pretty easy to live on a good path, is it not?
If you follow that voice, you're saying?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's like a guiding light. It's like a guiding voice. It's actually your own self that's kind of listening to God too, but that higher voice, especially if you you'll get the higher voice in its message, and then you'll think about it with your logical mind to see if it logically makes sense. Like, should I jump off this cliff? But if it logically makes sense, and then emotionally it feels right, then you can go on it. But I would always go with especially in the spiritual stuff, how it feels emotionally. Because logically, we're no match for the spiritual things, but our feelings and hearts are. That's the best way. Like, you can go by your feelings. You can feel more than you can deduce in the spiritual world. That's why the experiencers and stuff know more about the spiritual world than the scientists, because the scientists are always trying to figure it out, and the experiencers are feeling it and experiencing it. And it's different when you experience something and feel it than if you just think about it or talk about it like a scientist, you know. And a lot of times they're just in the laboratories just talking about it, you know. They're drinking coffee and wine, but the experiencer out there actually getting chased by the Bigfoot or the UFO. So the experiencers kind of rule these days, and the scientists have to go to them. But it's guys like you, Dave, who connect the experiencers and with the people who want to learn. Because there's a huge audience out there for now, and they're starving for answers, and they deserve them. After all these years of research into all these fields, they deserve some good answers. And in our near-death research, we have provided some.
One of the things that bugs me, Eugene, is, you know, I think anybody who is a tad intuitive always has that group of friends that comes over and is always asking for advice, always asking for help and guidance. And because we're friends, we're always all too happy to help out. That's just what humanity does, and that's what we're supposed to do. So you sit down, you tell them about this little voice, how they have to connect with it, listen to it. You tell them what'll happen and the consequences if they don't take this path. And they go, great, awesome. I know what to do now. Thank you so much. They give you a big hug. And then a couple of days later, they call you up or they come see you and they're crying, they're upset, they're whining. Why didn't this work? What went wrong? I just don't understand why this always happens to me. Then you say to them, did you follow what I told you? Well, not exactly. Well, why are you back? How frustrating can that be for you? Because I know for me, suffering from depression and anxiety, it happens a lot with me, and it literally almost sends me over the edge every time where I literally want to bang my head against a wall.
Yeah. So, how do I deal with it?
How do you deal with it?
It's like with people, a lot of times you can get, if you do help them, a lot of times you'll, and the advice works, a lot of times they'll take off, and you may never even see them again. Or else there's like maybe no even thanks. And then a lot of times if the advice somehow doesn't work, whether it's their fault or the message, fault of the message, then they come back saying it was your fault, even though you're the one who told them what to do or suggested that what they do. But and the way with people now, I kind of slowed down on giving them advice because either they take it and run or they come back complaining. So if it's informational thing, yeah, I could see that. But if it's like personal stuff, then people are really different from the way they used to be. But if it's personal, I try not to really get, unless they're personal friends, but people are going to do what they want anyway. I suggest once or twice, especially if I see that it's critical, but I just hope that usually the people listen to me and it turns out all right, but a lot of times I just don't like it when they take the advice or information and then you never hear from them again. But if they're a real close friend and stuff, well, it's hard with giving people advice because either they take it and run or, yes.
I have a question from Claudia in the SOR Space Travelers. This goes back to when we were talking about dreams in the last half hour. Her question is, she was in a bubble going around the Earth, and it was so beautiful, so vivid, and had boarded ships in her dreams, and have had downloads from ETs. Is it because she was supposed to have this happen? Also, is vivid dreaming like the ones that are so realistic? Are you actually really there?
Yeah, those are both good questions, and especially it's interesting about the traveling in the bubble around the Earth. That's interesting too. But I'll answer the second one first. Yeah, when people have lucid dreams and they are like literally dunking a basketball or shooting the puck through a hockey net, and they feel the ice on their face and stuff like that, they're there in like a trans-dimensional way. They're definitely there somewhere, some part of them experiencing something, especially if it's the lucid type of dream that you remember long after you wake up and go through the day or week. Like the normal dreams usually drift away, but the lucid dreams that are more than dreams, you'll remember days later. That's one way you can distinguish between a regular dream and a lucid dream, a dream of more importance. But they're definitely real in some way. We experience, just because, see, a lot of times we'll go to sleep and we'll think that the waking reality is, when we're in that dream reality, we think that's reality until we wake up and we see that we're back in this reality. They're both realities. We just think that the one reality is less. And really, in reality, it's more, way more, in that we can do and experience in that dream or spiritual reality than we can here. In fact, it's so much more that it's one illusion in that dream or spiritual reality can be more than a person will ever experience consciously here on Earth. And the illusion alone from that spiritual realm can have physical after effects here on Earth, even though it's just an illusion and imaginary. That's how strong that other side is. And once you learn the rules through dreams and out of bodies, then you can navigate better in there and be more conscious in there, be more awake in the levels of consciousness. That means a lot with dreams and stuff, and that can be elevated through breathings and just a little bit of knowledge. But all of that spiritual stuff is fully interesting and can only develop the person more. And with Claudia's first question, it was about being in the bubble that went around the Earth, and she said she had been in. Can you just read the first?
Sure, give me 2 seconds here. I just gotta.
Okay, good.
It was that she was going around in a bubble on the Earth. It seemed so beautiful and vivid, and that she has boarded ships in her dreams and have had downloads from extraterrestrials. Is it because she wanted this to happen?
Yes. Yeah, definitely a part of her wanted it, or was supposed to, or deserved it, or needed it. One of those things, because those kind of spiritual things just don't happen. And they have priests and monks who pray for decades or for their whole lives and never have like the type of experience like Dave. You've seen UFOs, and Claudia's have had these kind of dreams that are super real, where she feels it was so real that she really was there. And in reality, she was there. But she definitely was supposed to. Anything spiritual that happened, especially in a good way, it was definitely meant for you, yes. Claudia has some good questions.
Well, we're going to fire another one from Claudia as well at you. And she's wondering, Eugene, have you ever encountered men in brown robes in your dreams? She has had them visit in her dreams for a full week, giving her so much information that it was like they sat at a table every night. And at the end of the week, she said, please, my brain is full. Do not come back for a while. She's always wondered who they were.
Yeah, I have had those dreams. And those are like, I had them when I was a teenager. And sometimes they would encircle me in a half a circle and I'd be in the middle. And just like she said everything true there. They would fire off information or revelations to you, sometimes at the same time, which your subconscious could handle, and then later download or be revealed to you, but your conscious mind couldn't handle, especially in that spiritual altered state. But your conscious could record it and then download it at the right time. So she was like at a place where I call it's like a learning level. And the beings do impart knowledge to you. And there is a desire to see the face, and they do wear hoods, and there's a desire to see the face of the teacher who is giving you information. It may be information that the person wants in the future or that they need to know now, what they were asking about in the past, but they do give out information, or they could give out information about things that the person wants to know about too. But it's like a learning level where you can go strictly just to learn. And like she said, there's a few of them, not usually just one, but at least 4 or more. And often you can't see the backgrounds, but they impart knowledge that is later remembered, and sometimes remembered right there when you wake up. But that's like a learning level, and it shows like a strong desire to know about that world. And through these beings, she can learn a lot, and that's good when you get in that level, because you can learn a lot of stuff that you later remember, or you just automatically know, or remember when you wake up. But those beings, you can learn a lot through them. Who they are is still questionable, and I used to try to look up in the faces of those hoods, and each time I did, they would knock me out. And I tried to look up so much, they would knock me out every time. And you just weren't allowed or couldn't see their faces. And if you were able to look up, then it would still be foggy where it would just be blurted out. So sometimes it's best not to know too much. But a lot of information can be learned from those beings. Yep. She is telling the truth about that.
Corrine has a question from the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. She dreams constantly of lions and panthers. Why would that be?
She dreams of lions and panthers?
Yes.
Animals? Some would say those are her spirit animals. And I think, like with the spirit guides, I think so. The animals could also be alien abduction type of screen type of image, but it depends on how she is with animals, how she feels about them, and like some people might be afraid if they saw cats like that up there in their dreams. It depends on how she feels about them and how she sees. A lot depends on how the experiencer themselves feel about the experience, because that's the main factor in determining how real it was. It all depends on how they perceive it. And the doctors and scientists always want to know what the experiencer thinks about it, how they felt while it happened. So and these things help the person to self-analyze themselves, but a lot depends on how she feels, was she threatened by them, did she feel that they were helpful. But those are definitely symbols for something, and it's up to her to figure out what. But it shows that she has good dream vision, and she remembered that part. She should try to lengthen her dream memories, like through the breathing exercises, or put some quartz crystals under your bed and start logging your dreams down in a notebook, because there's more. Usually we just remember slight fragments or blurry visions of dreams and out of bodies. If we can remember the totality, there's so much more in the abductions and the near deaths and all of those experiences, especially when we're dreaming or in altered states. So that memory thing, we definitely want to work on that, and it can be worked on and improved. See, like we were talking about spiritual illusions, like that. It's like in the illusions. So spiritual illusions are interwoven with reality and illusions. You really see it, but it's something that you see in your mind. So you have to figure out what the symbol means, or if it's an illusion, or if it's a real message about some kind of real animal. So the person has to analyze it fully themselves and see what they come up with. That'll really be the best answer. The best answer is always inside your own self.
Eugene, could it be a spirit animal or a spirit guide? And the reason why I ask that, is I know my spirit totem animal is a cougar. And when I was spiritually opening up myself, I would actually get this vision of this cougar's face literally 2-3 inches from my nose. And it would just be staring there at me. I never felt afraid, but it would, even just talking about it, I can see the cougar's face right in my face right now. So could it be part of that totem?
It could. It's because there's a lot of people who love animals, and they feel more comfortable around animals than people. But it depends on how the animal related to the person in that scene. Was the animal talking or communicating with you, or did?
No, it wasn't. It just kind of was just staring there at me, kind of like, kind of like a stoic guardian, if that's the way I can put it. But I didn't see the rest of the body. It was just the facial features, the nose, the way the mouth was underneath the nose, and how the nose connected to the eye sockets with the deep brown eyes staring back at me, like that close.
Yes. Wow. See, that sounds like, the closeness sounds like almost like an abduction thing, to be that close. And that takes a lot of, in those spiritual things, it takes a lot of nerve. It can be nerve-wracking. It can be rewarding, but the person has to be of a well-balanced health and mental health, because the fragile person couldn't deal with those things. And that's good that you weren't afraid, because I knew I would have jerked away had an animal like that been up close to me. But you might have a different feeling about animals than I do. But it's how close it was sounds weird, but the fact that it's an...
Are you there,
about your
Eugene?
feelings in the...
You cut out there for a second, Eugene. We missed a little bit.
Oh. If it sounds like with that, with your one cat so close up into your face, that sounds kind of strange, with it being just a few inches away, because that seems almost like an intimidation type thing. Unless you weren't afraid, and it didn't sound like you were afraid of it at all. But depending on if you felt comfortable with that cat there as a protector, then it would be fine. A lot depends on how the person feels. If they feel all right with it, the feelings are so important in that thing. You can go by your feelings to see if things are right or what their intentions are. The feelings are almost everything in that world. And like you said, being open. But it's always good to double check and be suspicious and watch, because there's a lot of illusions, like things. You could be looking at something that could just transform to something else. And you can, in that world, you can think of something or have a strong emotion, and it can affect the colors in the sky. That's an interesting thing, that spiritual reality. But it's interesting with the animals, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Corrine has posted a little bit more on her experience with this lion in her dream. She says she is afraid, but last night the lion got so close to her and loved her. It talked to her. I asked her, what did it say? And it says that it needed help. What would be the cause of something like that, where a spiritual animal is asking for help?
That does sound odd, yeah. And I wonder if it went into elaborated on what kind of help it needed or how it needed it. But that sounds odd, that a spiritual animal would ask a human for help, especially it being spiritual. Where the humans, their spiritual sides aren't they're not really developed enough to assist, I don't think, another being fully like that, where they're kind of just still navigating themselves in like the out-of-body thing. So unless the thing wanted its help emotionally or mentally, like thinking about it, but it sounds a little different, especially when people get up, whenever there's any kind of apprehension, that's something like the proximity of the cat's face to her and going past her boundaries, that's something to watch too. And the person should always have their freedom and personal space. Anything that intrudes on you in that spiritual world is something to watch out for. And there's a dark side to that spiritual world too, that people shouldn't just innocently go in there and not think that everything's like some kind of spiritual playground, because it's just as rough as this world. But there's ways you can protect yourself, especially it's your thinking and your feeling. That's the best protection. They can tell if they can trick you or bend your will. It's interesting, and a lot of times the person has to do it themselves. People talk about guides and animals, and they're there for you, but a lot of times they'll come only when they're really needed. A lot of times the person has to do it and get through it themselves. Like in nightmares, a lot of times those guides aren't there. The person somehow gets through, but that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I answered it.
Oh, yeah. We have a couple minutes before we got to go to break here at the top of the hour, but I have an out-of-body experience question from Galen for you in the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook. Has Eugene ever talked to anyone while having an out-of-body experience, like ran into another person out of body, and afterwards they looked up at each other and thinking that it had been a dream, but were shocked to learn each person existed? So have you ever ran into somebody on the street that you've had an encounter with out of body?
I've ran into people in the street who I swore that I've met before, and they might have been met astrally or in some kind of future dream projection. I've talked to other people in the astral who didn't answer, and these were like, that was probably when I was invisible in real life, but invisible to them in astral form, so they wouldn't have seen me anyway. I have interacted with other astral humans while in the astral body, but it wasn't a verbal communication. It was like a telepathic or emotional communication. Mm-hmm. And as far as a person, I think definitely it could be possible to meet someone in the astral and then meet them in real life. I definitely think that's possible. I think it's probably happened. I can't remember now, but you can always tell a different kind of special person that you might have been meant to know or you immediately connect with. And a lot of times the connection is so close that you got to figure it's like an ethereal connection, that it's more than just a human, that you were meant to know them, like fate or destiny type of thing. That happens. I know it.
It's very interesting, and there's a lot of secrets out there in order to be figured out. I don't know if we'll ever get to them all, But we got to try, right? We definitely have to try. I've never had an
worthwhile.
I've never had an OBE. I've never had an NDE. I'm not sure how I would react to having either of those, but it's amazing with all the experiences I have had, Eugene. Those two scare me. I think I would sooner come face to face with an alien or a dogman than having an NDE or an OBE.
Well, the out-of-body you would love, because it really just expands you. Like, you become more of yourself, and anytime you can get some of that cosmic energy on you from an out-of-body, and we do it every night, but we just don't remember because we're asleep. But to have a conscious out-of-body or to suddenly awake out-of-body, that can be easily done, and you can have one, and it just enhances you. It's like you know it automatically. Like the next day, you're like different. And the other one, the NDE, you can't prevent that from happening. Either it's meant to or it's not. Mm-hmm. But a person can have like a near-death-like experience where like they're slamming on the brakes in an intersection and the semi's coming and they just stop inches before it where they think they're going to die. You can almost die and still have like a near-death-like experience. But the near-death either it will happen or it won't. But I hope you don't, but if you do, and but you're still healthy and stuff, the rewards will be worth it. But there's other ways too, like you can have the same near-death experience through a powerful dream. Yeah. Yep. And it's so much safer and more natural.
Excuse me. I don't know, man, but we'll get into that in the final hour here, as our guest tonight is Eugene Braxton. He is considered America's most experienced mystic. He's got a great book out as well. Is that on Amazon, your book, or is it just on your website?
It's on my website and Amazon, but since I take 90%, I try to get the readers to get it from me. Yeah.
All right. That's braxtoneugene.wix.com/America's Mystic. America's Mystic Solves Near-Death Riddle. That's the book. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. Final hour coming up right after this.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Is the 24-hour world starting to wear you down? Let me from Rivulet Reiki and Ratings lend you a hand. Hi, this is Jolene, and if you're in need of Reiki or a room reading, come to my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr&r, and let us help you out. At Rivulet, I specialize in healing your body, mind, and soul, no matter where you are. And be sure to check out the Rivulet R&R Facebook page for your best deals. Remember, it's time for you to make some time for you.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. We're talking with Eugene Braxton, and he is America's most gifted mystic. At least that's what I call him. He's a good friend of this show, and it's really nice of Eugene to be able to hop on at a very short notice after we had troubles with our good friend Rob Morphy of this show from Cryptopia.us. Eugene steps in, just like the pinch hitter that he is, comes in and does a kick-ass interview with us tonight. I will say that. Before we bring Eugene back on, I do want to remind you, tomorrow night, author David Gutty will be with us talking about haunted experiences that he wrote about in his own home. Scary indeed. We'll get into that tomorrow night to wrap up the week. Hey, be with us Tuesday night, of all shows. Tuesday night, we're going to open up the lines to you. I want all of you to call, and this is why. It's my birthday. So I want your experiences, your fun tales on Tuesday, the 24th. Old Davey here will be reaching the 43rd anniversary of the commemoration of my birth, and I want to share it with you guys. I haven't booked any guests for that night. So let's do that on Tuesday night. Be there and pick up the phone and call. Not to wish me a happy birthday. I'll get enough of those. But I want to hear your stories, and I want to have some fun that night. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, where we put our archives, is Spaced Out Radio Show. And, of course, our website, where we hold on to everything, is spacedoutradio.com. Now, we bring in Eugene Braxton once again. He is an author, he is a mystic, he is a psychic, he is an experiencer. Eugene, right before the break, we were talking about out-of-body experiences. I've never had one. I want you to break down for us people who've never had one, what happens and what it's like.
Okay, Dave, yeah. The person gets ready for bed. They go to sleep. As they start to drift off, if they're awake enough, and even if they're not awake enough, the body starts to slow down, and as the person drifts into sleep, the body simultaneously begins to softly paralyze itself. And if you're awake, you can slowly feel it coming up from your feet, very slow. It feels tingly, almost like spider web sensation. And it's those breathing exercises that'll keep you awake as the paralyzation begins. And the paralyzation that you feel at the beginning of an out-of-body is a sign of a possible oncoming out-of-body. It's a sign that your body's ready to do an out-of-body if you can feel the paralysis. There's ways where you can stay awake long enough to feel it. So the paralysis holds the physical body in place so that the astral body, which needs to come out to recharge in the prana, or the electromagnetic energy in the air, the physical body is incapacitated. It's held for about maybe 30 seconds, 35. It seems like 3 or 4 minutes to the person, but the person is paralyzed. The spiritual body naturally comes out involuntarily. It goes straight up, usually. You can roll out, but it goes straight up, and then it stands up upright, usually at the front of the bed. And there's like a 6-foot or 5-foot radius where there's some kind of magnetic pull that tries to pull you back into your physical, but if you can just lean forward or walk away out of that 6-foot radius, then you're free, conscious, in reality, but invisible. And if you're in the room invisible, if you think about being on top of a roof, you either float upwards and through it, or you're suddenly on top of the roof, visible and awake. If you so once you're out of body form, you're kind of free but awake, and so that's how an out of body starts. And the person usually loses consciousness during the paralyzations, because it's for some reason for some it's too scary for them to go through, because there are all kinds of sometimes you might hear mechanical signs where it sounds like you're in a factory. You might have temporary hallucinations while the body is being paralyzed, that beings are around you. Sometimes a person will mistake an OBE for an alien abduction, because there's a 15 or 20 second period when your body's coming out that all kinds of hallucinations are possible. And this is in medical journals too. I'll pull it up for you and give it to you tomorrow. But it's a period of time where the imagination takes over and you're freaking out. And the more you struggle against that paralysis, the tighter it gets. I used to struggle until it would knock me out, and then the astral body would come out. But I had so many, about 12,000 in 10 years, that I got fully used to them. So the person is paralyzed also again when the spirit body comes back in, usually after a night's excursion or recharging. The astral body can either be awake and go on adventures where the person may feel slightly tired because their astral was awake when it should have been fully recharging, or the astral can sleep a few feet above the physical and recharge nearby. When a person feels like they're having a falling dream and they actually feel like they hit the pillow, that's the astral body literally falling back into the physical, and you can feel it in your physical. And healers, like they say, Jesus used to go in a room with the person he was supposed to heal, lie down on the bed next to him, and supposedly he would get up in his astral body and work on the other person's astral body, heal it, and then go back into his physical. And in time, the other person's astral would come back down, and they'd be healed. And so once you healed the spiritual body, the physical body would then be healed too. But anyone can have an out-of-body. And certain breathing techniques and relaxation and visualizing techniques, you can spin yourself. The out-of-body and dreams are connected, so if you can have one, you can have the other. And it's nothing to be afraid of. You can literally watch the whole thing. If you can keep calm, and Dave, you're pretty, not afraid, you're pretty non-fearful guy. You could have one. Yeah.
Oh, I'm telling you right now, I would probably be changing my underwear on that one, Eugene. I may paint a good picture here on the radio, but when something like that happens, if it does, I don't honestly know how I would react. If all of a sudden I saw myself paralyzed and then leaving my body astrally and looking down and seeing my body, I would honestly have a panic attack. Because don't forget, I suffer from anxiety, and I could see my anxiety going absolutely crazy with this.
The person's heart rate and stuff does go up, but there's nothing lit, because I would be conscious, and it's so involuntary that it seems to be controlled by a third outside force. Like there's 3 kinds of out-of-bodies: a conscious, a controlled out-of-body, and then one where it's controlled fully by the subconscious or the superconscious. Like suppose a person's sick and they need to have their astral come out to recharge. They're in the hospital. The superconscious will bring it out and hold it out. So sometimes there's a fully controlled out-of-body. But when it's happening, it does the work itself. All you have to do is literally lay there and try to keep your composure. The first few times it's scary, especially if you're fully awake. And like if the person, say you wake up and you have the day off and you go back to sleep, that's a good time. When you're dead tired, it's only when you're slightly tired, like an afternoon nap. That's a good time to have one. Certain times of the day and night are better to have them. But they can be had, and they're fun to have. It'll really illuminate you. And that one part, it'll be worth it going through it like the paralyzations. And the more you grip, the more you fight it, the tighter it gets. That's a scary thing, too. And it is scary. I used to have some wild hallucinations when I would be coming out of the physical body, and they would stop. Once I got like about 2 feet out of my body, they stopped. But then there's an invisible force that lifts you out. And they talk about like spirits and demons and stuff lifting a person out of their astral body. I'm sure it could be done because it's just, but the person also has like a protection. Like if a person has a spiritual belief in God, then a lot of those kind of beings have to stay miles away. It's like a nuclear thing to them, just from the belief alone. And they would see the belief as like a light or a color. And it's so bright that they can't get too close, depending on the person's faith. That's why the faith is so important in those realms, because it's seen as, it's like a strength. It's like your armor. So you got to definitely believe in a power outside of yourself, because psychologically, we're no match for any of the dark side of the spiritual world. And you can't always, you don't want to always rely on guides and stuff. You want to have it between yourself and God. And you can always rely on God. So it's good to have a spiritual faith. If you say a prayer before those out-of-bodies and you want to have them, if you add God into it, you'll have a good out-of-body that's softened. Because you can bypass the paralyzations just by having out-of-body through a dream, too. You can turn a dream, like a flying dream, into an out-of-body just simply by realizing, oh, my God, I'm dreaming. And once you realize that, your level of consciousness will heighten, and to the point where you'll wake up out of the dream and your astral body is literally performing the dream, thinking that's a dream. And it's really your astral flying, and you're thinking you're dreaming. So when you wake up in a dream, you'll automatically change. You'll become conscious in your spirit body, flying over Denver or whatever, Toronto. And it's something definitely worth to try, because you're way more in touch with your spirit self. And the next day when you wake up, you'll see things in a different way. You'll become more psychic and stuff, and it's definitely worth it. And then you'll want to do it again. But there's ways you can bypass the thing and just pop awake. Like suppose you wanted to go visit James in an out-of-body thing. You could visualize yourself being in front of his house, maintain your continuity of consciousness so you can stay awake as you're falling asleep. And you would begin to think that you're imagining that you're in front of his house, but you're literally almost like Star Trek beaming in. You're partially beaming there. And there's a way where you can walk into a dream. And the Native Americans spoke about that stuff, and so did Stephen LaBarge of Lucid Dreaming. That's a good book if you want to learn more about dreams and dream control. But there's a way you can just go from a dream to an out-of-body. You can bypass the...
I have a couple questions from the listeners coming in right now. This one we'll take from Joe in the SOR Space Travelers. He's asking, Eugene, isn't your body being paralyzed while you're in bed also a sign of imminent alien contact or the old hag syndrome?
It is. It is, exactly. And that's why, see, the paralyzations happen in out-of-bodies, in alien abductions, and, of course, with rigor mortis in death. The person also is paralyzed when they're dying, and they can see and think, but they can't move. And so the paralyzations have a connection with out-of-bodies, OBEs, and near-deaths. And there are more connections, too. But he saw that right, and so that's why some people mistake an alien abduction for an OBE or vice versa. And that's And after enough practice, you can tell the difference, because with an alien abduction, there's more primal fear, or there's more primal ecstasy. The feelings are amplified to a point where it becomes suspicious. And they use feelings and emotions to get their way too. Like people with the ecstasy, and people, there's a lot to that alien abduction thing. I'm glad we have a few minutes too to talk about it. But he's right. Paralyzation, that's a prime feature in alien abductions and out of body. So that sets it up for an astral abduction, which happens a lot, and the experiencers are reporting astral abductions. And it would be way more better for them to abduct someone astrally than physically, because they won't even be seen astrally. And these things are interdimensional, and so are we by nature.
True enough. True enough. Eric in Paranormal Forum is asking, Eugene, do you have a technique that you could guide him through for having a conscious OBE, and how does it work? How do you do it?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. That's a worthy thing to try and do. Yeah, so to have a conscious one, you just want to maintain your continuity of consciousness or stay awake as you're falling asleep. And you can do anything from counting dreams to the best way to do is the breathing exercises. The breathings will, you want to do slow, deep breathing. Say, slowly take in air for about maybe 15 seconds, as much as you can comfortably. You hold it for a few seconds and very slowly, even more slowly, let it out. Do about 8 of them, or do what's comfortable for you. But the more air, especially comfortably, the better, because the more air power you have, the more awake you'll be in those dream levels. You'll be much more awake. Just try do the breathing exercises for a week, 7 days, enough time for you to have a dream, and see how awake you are. Or try tonight. Do 8 deep breathings, and you'll remember that dream a lot more. And then when you add things like silver rings or quartz crystals, you'll clearly remember, and you'll see better. So there's ways to amplify the spiritual accuracy of what you see, because sometimes the dream memories are so foggy, the person cannot even see if they saw what they saw was reality or an illusion. So the breathings is the best way to stay awake while you begin to slowly come out of your body, and it's the best way to have a clarity of what you went through, because half of it is illusion and strong illusions. So the person wants to do deep breathings as they're laying to bed. If you want to tighten up and loosen your body, you want to be fully relaxed and limp, on your back if possible. Do the deep breathings and try to count them or stay with them. Other things will come into your mind as you do the breathings, and other things you might see images from what you did the day before, that same day. But just ignore them and continue to only do those slow in and out breathings. You'll soon notice that your body, that your head and mind is awake, but that your body has been completely still for a while. And after a while, you'll begin to do the breathings naturally. Even on the first night, they'll become automatic. And you want to breathe through your stomach first, and then your lungs and your chest. Try and do it really slow. So all this air is fully cleaning the person's body, and it's waking up their mind. The air wakes them up. In fact, in time, I'm going to get one of those air breathing things that you wear while you sleep, because I'll have some crystal clear dreams. But so you do the breathings. As you're doing them, you'll begin to notice that your legs are slowly either getting numb or tingly, and that's the beginning that an out-of-body is imminent. So you want to continue to do the breathings and stay calm, but just notice how your body feels. That's a good way to do it, too. The breathings will help you to get in touch with how your body feels and how your mind works. I can't stress the breathings enough. So you'll begin to feel this slight paralysis, usually down your feet or legs, and you'll feel it slowly working up. Those steady breathings, because it's a rhythmic thing, will keep you awake while your body is falling asleep and getting more and more still. You want to stay calm during the paralysis so you can be awake as you come out of your body. You'll hear things that will try to rattle you, like mechanical sounds. You might feel that there are things in the room, but try to avoid any kind of emotional responses. You actually want to be Spock-like while this is happening, because you might even see things like leaning over your bed, but you want to ignore it, because the more knowledge, the more you know that it's an illusion. And a lot of times when you face the fear of an illusion, it just literally disappears right there in front of you. So ignore any kind of psychological visions or illusions or sounds, because they'll happen. You might hear someone calling you, especially during this paralyzation state, because you're kind of entering like a different spiritual atmosphere, and things that you didn't hear in that conscious state. The bridge is those breathing exercises, and you begin to hear things from the other world because you're partially awake. You can be partially awake in the other world while still semi-awake here. And I have a picture of what you want to do is be half awake and half asleep at the same time. And a lot of times if you put one elbow up while you're laying down on the bed, when it droops, that'll kind of, or one knee up, anything that'll kind of keep you half awake, half asleep. But the breathings is the best way. And that's the best way to have a conscious OBE, is through the breathings and keeping a track of how your body feels, because it'll start with paralysis and then the illusions or hallucinations. After that, you'll feel yourself being lifted up. You can literally turn around and look down and see yourself at the bed. And also, that's when your consciousness will expand. Like you can, like while your body's going up, you can literally look through the ceiling because you're using astral vision and see wherever you want to see it. You have what they call spherical consciousness, where you can see 360 degrees without turning your head. All you got to do is think about it, and you can see in that direction. Also, the person has a dual consciousness where your physical body is there. Like if someone were to stick you with a pin, you'd feel it, and you'd feel it in your astral too. You could feel it. You could be looking down to your body from 8 feet above, and if someone were to, like say a bug were to bite you, a mosquito, you'd feel it in the astral. So you have a dual consciousness, and you have a dual sensitivity in both bodies. So whatever happens to the astral, the physical can feel, and vice versa. And you can, that's like people on the surgery table have been out of body and watched the doctors worked on them, and as they cut the physical body, the person could feel it in their astral. So there's a dual consciousness at work, that's at work at the same time. It also shows the different minds of man and how they can be working together consciously. Because he was awake in his astral, but felt what they were doing in his physical. So there's a good connection there. But also the desire to be awake during the out of body is a big part too. That's about 45%, how bad you want to do it. Because there's people in hospital beds or little kids or athletes, and the desire in that world is a lot too. And the desire, the willpower, and then like the application. But if you do those breathings, you'll have one. Because you have them anyway. Most people just sleep through them. But the breathings will keep you awake. And you'll be able to feel your heartbeat. You'll hear it fully. Like where you normally can't hear it unless you be still and listen, you'll be able to hear it fully when you do the breathings, because you're so in touch with that other side that the breathings put you in touch, very close contact with your spiritual self, which is what you want. You know.
That's heavy stuff, man. I'm going to say that right off the bat. That is heavy. And I'm probably going to have to replay this on our archives on YouTube, so that way I can get the full dynamic of this, because I was literally sitting here with my jaw open trying to take this all in. And for people who've had that experience, they will know, like Eric is like, yes, I understand that fully. But for someone who hasn't, it's intimidating. I'm not going to lie. It's intimidating. I don't know if I would want that.
Well, I mean, just like people say, there's no way I could be a radio host, and because it's too much and I have to talk in front of people. But once you do it, it doesn't seem that intimidating. Like, once you played hockey and you made the varsity, you know? And it's not there, because there's nothing really that should. Sometimes the desire to do something trumps the intimidation factor. But you can get away, you can get around, like if the person's fearful of you can just pop yourself into an out of body. You don't have to watch the parallelizations and the floating average of body. Because that is, the first few times it happened to me, I was freaked out too. I was like, what? How can I split in half and then look at myself, So the first, but it's worth it because all the extra, being in that cosmic energy, in out-of-body state, you're like supercharging. Instead of just charging your batteries during a normal sleep. Because when the people go to sleep, they're really just, that's the astral self just getting energized from the electromagnetic energy that's in its ear. And so we recharge really when our astral goes out. And so it's good to know that side. It's like a dual side, and the more the person knows it, the more it'll help you. And you can, that's how, like, there's a thing called rapid manifestation where you just get things automatically. That second self, that soul self, is a good thing to know, and it's right there. It wants to know the person too.
Eugene, I'm going to get you to hold on one final time tonight. As we were talking with Eugene Braxton last half hour, we were talking about out-of-body experiences. I am not sure I want one. This seems a little intimidating. I would sooner run face-to-face into another extraterrestrial than I would probably have one of these things, because I've seen ETs. They've been all right to me. So we're going to get into that right after this break with Eugene Braxton.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio?
Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us.
From the radio, commercials, to banners, to social media.
Have a product you'd like our host to endorse? We can do that too.
Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Spaced Out Radio.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
The last Monday of the month on Spaced Out Radio is a night of psychic vision, mediumship, UFO and ET contact, Bigfoot stories, animal communication, and so much more with me, Elizabeth Anglin. I'd love it if you would join host Dave Scott and I on the myriad of topics we delve into. Every month, we share new views that may help you understand your own experiences. So tune on in at spacedoutradio.com and stamp your cosmic passport.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Missed most of tonight's show? Don't worry, you didn't miss a thing. You can head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and download our archives for free. And don't forget to get your Space Travelers membership today. Now, back to tonight's show. Welcome back to the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. As we've rounded third, we're heading for home here on the mighty SOR. Tomorrow night, we talk hauntings and haunted houses with author David Gutty, who talks about the spirits in his own house. We want to thank everyone listening in on the SHR Media Network. If you're listening in on Paranormal Forum, thank you so much. On the Space Travelers Facebook page, along with Euphoria Chronicles, and the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. A pleasure to be broadcasting to all of you. Tonight we are talking with Eugene Braxton. We're going to bring Eugene on momentarily. But first, I do want to remind you, as I do every time, that you can follow us on social media on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can be following us at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. That's where we put our archives. Subscribe to that. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. We bring in Eugene Braxton for the final time tonight. Eugene has been filling in after our original guest, Rob Morphy, had to cancel due to an emergency. So Eugene has been talking about out-of-body experiences. I have a couple questions coming from the SOR Space Travelers room for you, Eugene. Claudia, once again, is asking, she was awake walking down the street. It was a beautiful day. She was so happy that day. She turned to her left and saw herself. It scared her so bad that she popped back in immediately. She heard a lot of times people split in the awake state, more often when they are happy. Is that true? And what makes people split and see themselves when they are awake?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good experience. Country guys do it. I had it twice when I was in high school, where I just suddenly, and it's called spontaneous out of body. Marathon runners, anyone, where you just suddenly shoot out of your body, and you could look, you can see it from outside, and then you kind of pop back in within, 10 seconds or so, but long enough to see that you're out and then you're in again. That's a spontaneous out of body, where it happens naturally. It happens a lot of times in medical emergencies. Say, like there's a car crash. A lot of times, a person's body, like in the movie "What Dreams May Come," the astral on impact will shoot out of the body, and there's sometimes, because of the impact of the hit, and the astral will wake up, like in that movie, like 45 feet away, and walk back to the car and see their physical self dead inside. So sometimes the astral can pop out, like in times of sickness or a spiritual experience, or just naturally, like with an athlete, will pop out like she was walking. I was sitting once, and then I was running another time. And so that's a natural thing that happened, and that's a good experience, too. That's because she's in the out-of-body zone, and now's a good time for her to work with her dreams and out-of-bodies more, because once it starts happening, it happens for a while. It's good to catch that surf when it's happening, because she can do that now. She should keep doing that for as many seasons as it lasts, because she can do more. But she popped out, saw herself, and then kind of popped back in. That's good. It shows that her secondary spiritual self is waking up and is aware. And once you get that conscious self-aware, then it's easy to have lucid dreams. Then you're aware of both worlds, when you're physically awake and when you're spiritually awake. Then you learn twice as much. And you can learn a lot from that spiritual world. Just from having that experience, she got a lot of cosmic energy on her, and it'll show up the next day when she wakes up. and through a dream or out of body. That's a good experience you mentioned. Yeah, I've had that. She might have more, but Claudia. She asked good questions. She's had a lot of good experiences, and it's be deep if those things are happening to her now, which it sounds like it is.
She is my listening brain trust. I will say that. She asks brilliant questions, and realistically, she could do this job very, very easily. I will say that. I just love her participation. Let's follow it up with another question from Claudia. Isn't remote viewing and shamans and psychics using the astral body to be a witness to what they are seeing that is far away?
It would seem like it, but they're kind of using there's like a consciousness where the person has, and people might have, there's where you're a pinpoint of consciousness, where instead of in the astral body, you're in one step higher where it's just your mind is there. And you may be instead of being a participant, like in the astral, the remote viewing, using that pinpoint or mind only, they're there almost as a spectator. Like they might see it as a camera would see it from the corner of the room. And they you observe only. You're not really participating in the scene. You can feel the scene, but you're more like as a camera, You see it kind of as a camera, where in the astral, you can interact with it more. You could touch it. And when the remote viewing, and in remote viewing, a lot of times you'll get these clips, like in the movie Minority Report, how they showed those grainy images. Remote viewing is like that. Instead of, in the astral, it might be a long sequential event of uninterrupted memory stream, where it's just a story instead of these clips. But both should be used. The remote viewing, where you're just like a camera's eye or a fly on the wall, and you see it like that, and the astral, where you can interact with it and feel it. You can even merge with it, which is an interesting thing, that merging thing. But that was a good question by Claudia, too.
Eric has a question for you from Paranormal Forum. Can an astral body go forward in time, say make observations a day or so in the future?
Yeah. Yep. And usually simply just by desiring to do it. And in that world, once you say something, it's becomes manifest already. So it teaches you to control your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Like one time I was in the astral, and I thought I was being buried up to my waist in quicksand, and literally right then I was. And I didn't get loose until I pictured myself floating in the air above. So, and that shows that you're kind of in the dream world when that kind of stuff happens. When you're in the real world, but in the astral form, it's more like Claudia had. And the vision, and she might remember, is different when you're in that astral thing. It's like what is the word? It's like a prism. The light is like a prism effect where things glisten and stuff. Not all the time, but that's an indication that you're having an astral as opposed to a dream. But things happen, just like things happen, what you want can happen in this world, but it takes a while. But in that other world, you can get it immediately. So you have to be more careful what you're thinking about and what you're feeling in that world, because it happens right away. And yeah.
When you have an out-of-body experience or you have that paralyzation, are you open and susceptible to other experiences like extraterrestrial encounters, like shadow people encounters, like positive beings, negative beings, or are you committed to having the OBE at that time?
When you usually when you have the OBE, it's a lone experience where the person is the sole person there. A lot of times you might feel that there are other entities around, and see that's where discerning the difference between a spiritual reality and a spiritual illusion comes in handy. And you can do that by the feeling that you get from this thing, although the hallucinations can be tricky because, like I said, the after effects of just a hallucination can have a physical permanent effect in real life. So the best thing to do is to remain calm in any spiritual thing and don't get too emotionally ecstatic or too fearful. And that will, then the illusions dissolve and you can perceive beyond that veil into the reality of the situation. And because you see a situation, like I had the near death, and then later, upon reflection, just like with a dream, and then experience over the years, I saw more into the near death than just the life after death. And a lot of that will be in the second book. So there's a lot of times a sub-reality behind the reality. A person has an out-of-body, and that is in reality maybe an abduction, but they see it as a dream or an out-of-body. And it can be a combination of them both, which does happen. In that world, it's like anything can happen. And so you have to be open and non-emotional. The more non-emotional you are, the better. Because the feelings, they can trick you with feelings. Because it's such a psychological place. Like what you think happens, how you feel affects where you are. And here's an interesting thing, Dave. When the person's level of consciousness changes, when they're aware that they're having a dream or an out-of-body, their space or dimensional location changes. So whenever there's a change in the level of consciousness, their conscious awareness, their space or dimensional location will change. Like you'll be talking to someone, and then you'll realize, like, wait a second, this is a dream, because I'm no longer married to this lady. When that happens, either you or the other person will disappear. And because sometimes you'll be talking to someone and they will disappear, or you'll disappear. You'll have said something, or something triggered you to realize, wait, this is a dream. And then you'll disappear. You can still be in a dream, but at a higher level. That level of consciousness is important. The physiology of the spirit body changes when your conscious awareness changes, and it corresponds to it. So that's one way where a person could travel. And I think, didn't he ask something about traveling in the future, or seeing something in the future? Your spirit body can go ahead in the future and look over anything from your funeral to your child's birthday and then report it to you. That's where like a future dream would come in. Mm-hmm.
I don't usually talk race, creed, or color or religious background on this show because personally I think it's quite irrelevant in 99.9% of the things we talk about, Eugene. But I do want to ask you, do different races or different ethnic backgrounds or different spiritual beliefs have different experiences when they're having an OBE or an NDE? So, for instance,
do they have different?
Yeah, let me just explain this a little bit more, and this is my thinking behind this question. Let's say if you're of First Nations descent or American Indian descent, we call everybody First Nations up here, because they are so tied to Mother Earth, nature, and their gods above, and their elders from the past still living or visiting them from the future, would they have a different experience as, say, me being a spiritual Caucasian overweight white guy?
I think that that's the spiritual things go above and beyond race. I think that however high his level that of attainment that he attained would be equally attainable to you too. I think the spiritual things go beyond race or religion. Mm-hmm. I think every race has their psychic ability and capacity, but I don't think that there's any race or group that's ahead of the others. I think some groups are more inclined, and some groups want to know more than the others, but I don't think any one group predominates. Like a lot of people think that the Indians with the yogis and stuff, they're the ones, and some people feel that the Kabbalah, but each group, whether it be Edgar Cayce or whoever, there's a good one. Rudolf Steiner, the German guy from 1905, he was really deep. Each group has their own, the Africans, the Hispanics, the Asians, their own. It's best to check out each group and see what they all say and then try to, come up with some kind of universal, because each group has their gems of knowledge.
Eric is saying that his East Indian friend seems to have a much different experience on an OBE than he does.
Yeah, I think the cultural, because he's, if he's from another culture and has lived that culture, he's definitely going to see it in a different way. But the OBE aspects, how it starts and how it, the function, the mechanics of it will be the same. The cultural experience won't be the same. Just like someone in India might not dream of Santa Claus where we might, But the mechanics of the OBE, the mechanics of the dream or near-death or abduction will be the same. But the cultural perceptions will be different.
So
definitely.
It basically comes down to, sorry for cutting you off, it basically comes down to how you were brought up then. So if you were brought up in the Hindu faith, it's going to be different than, say, someone who is brought up in a Catholic faith?
Just like, I think the overall experience, like say an alien abduction, the experience will be different. It may be perceived differently, but the overall experience and the goal will be the same. Like if a person wants divine guidance, it may be presented to them by a different being, but the overall effect will be the same, They'll see it in their own cultural way, but the mechanics of it will be the same. We're all humans, and we all have divine revelations in a certain way, a human way, but it's perceived in according to, like the Spanish, they'll hear it in Spanish, the message, like it won't be in English, So each one will get it in their own cultural way, but the mechanics of the experience will be the same.
Would consulting
It'll be an
Go ahead, please.
Yes. No, it'll be an OBE regardless of it's, Scandinavian or Mexican.
Right.
But it may be perceived in there, yeah.
Gloria is asking in the SOR Space Travelers room on Facebook, would consulting a Mexican curandera help?
Help in what? Like?
I guess in the experience that people are having.
I would, the first person I would trust would be my own self, because there's no one you can go to in this world who can tell you more about yourself or tell you what's more right for yourself than your own self. The people have to start learning how to trust themselves and learning how they are. And because you can't always go to some guide and trust them to tell you the truth or trust them that they know what they're saying. It's best where you can be your own teacher in a way. Or go back to the old school people like the Swedenborg or some of the old, masters, a Steiner, but because other people you'll see that they don't know that much more than you do, because he may be trying to pay his gas bill or whatever too. So it's best if you can, even like your parents or your family, but you got to be careful who you get information from these days, because people will say anything,
True enough. Where does the ET experience play in all of this?
It seems like, and I was with Dr. Jacobs for 12 years, because I saw things in my near-death experience that were anomalous and suspicious enough to see what he thought about them. And he agreed that what I saw into them was a good amount of alien activity. And so I studied with him for the next 12 years, and we still keep in contact because we're working on this. And the ETs, they seem to be in everything, Dave. It's the ETs are definitely involved in the psychic and paranormal fields. I saw an ET or UFO. I saw a UFO behind a haunted house. I think I talked about it once on Spaced Out Radio. I saw one behind a haunted house. I was with two friends, guys, and looked like these two pillars of light, and looked like they were walking. And once we saw that, we got out of there. I would later return in the weeks to come and even make some films there, and weird stuff happened there. But the ETs are connected with almost all of those fields. They're invisibly connected, but the connections are easy to see once you know about the other fields. Like you can see the connection with outer bodies through the paralyzations and even more things. You can see the connection with dreams, and everyone knows that the aliens can come through our dreams and get us when we're asleep and our defenses are down. And our willpower is down, our level of consciousness is down, and also they can operate through our spirit body. So they're connected with our spirituality, and they're connected with paranormal events. And the dark side of the ET thing is also connected with what looks like demonism. The dark ETs. And I will admit that there are good ones, but the good ones are cool, but it's the dark ones who are creating a lot of havoc for people with sleep and psychic attacks and paralyzations and these downloads, and also it's good to have the good ones, but the dark ones are doing a lot of stuff, and they have their agenda too. And it seems as almost if that the good ETs are trying to battle with us against the dark ones, but those dark ones are doing a lot of stuff, and it is not funny. I have some scars on my legs, big ones, from them. So that's a personal reason why I'm into them. But
well, I got a couple dates open next month, Eugene. We could bring you back on and talk about extraterrestrials and the contact that we have if you want to do that.
That'll be good, Dave, yes.
Awesome.
I don't think I've ever talked really about the UFO stuff on air. I don't talk about that too much.
Well, damn it, let's do it.
But
let's do it.
That'll be good. That'll be good.
How's June 1st for you? We'll book the date right now. I'll hold you to it in front of all of our audience.
And today's what, like 6th? Yeah, that's good.
Right.
What day is that, Dave?
That's a Wednesday night, same as tonight.
That's good.
Or
yeah.
Tonight's Thursday, sorry. But
that'll be good.
All right, I'll book you in there. We'll talk some ETs on that. We only have a couple minutes left. I want to get to a couple of questions from our audience before we got to shut this thing down for the night. Eric is asking, he is curious to know, Eugene, if there is a way of saturating a room one is projecting in with usable power for the astral body to use.
Saturating a room with usable power for the astral body to use?
Yes.
Yes, that's possible. It depends if he would have to do it probably in the astral form, but yeah, that's good. I like that kind of thinking. Mm-hmm. Yes.
How would you do that?
Yep. How would you?
Yeah.
Is that the question?
Yes, sir.
In the astral form, it would be done through thought projection and visualization, and backed up by feeling and emotion. Just like here, the person gets mad, like you'll see in the movie, that the psychic gets mad and all kinds of extreme powers come out. So they know that anger and emotion is a strong factor in the activating of the psychic abilities and emotions. And the more you have that under control, it's all right to have emotions, but to have them under control so you can pull them out when you want them. But with filling a room with like etheric energy, yeah, that would be visualization, combined with like emotions or emotive feelings. When you put the emotion behind a visualization, in this world and in that world, a lot can happen. So that's how he would fill it with that energy. And in that world, it's mainly through it's mainly through vision and feeling. So he would fill it up with energy that is produced by emotion, and then you shoot the emotion out, and he would also visualize what he wanted to attain. And in the astral form, it would happen.
I guess he was hoping there was an easier way of doing it.
That's pretty easy. I mean, all you got to do is think and visualize. But tell them to practice it. Tell them to try it. But that would be how I would do it. Because it's going to have to be done in the mind. And even if the person wants to shoot out energy through his fingers first, it all starts in the mind. So it has to start in the mind. And that's the best way you can do it. Like, suppose you want to do it long distance. But so much depends on the feeling and the focus of the mind and the balance of the mind, like with controlling the emotions and the focus of the thought. Because you're going to project that stuff out. He's going to picture himself filling up the room with energy. But that's how I would do it. I would do it astrally and then mentally and, emotionally.
Would pre-projection work then, or no?
Would what?
Would pre-projection of the energy work?
That would help, yeah. But it's best if he could do it while projected. But he could do it before. Because once you send out a thought, it's out there. And it starts kind of working in your behalf, just like the universe does when we throw a thought out there. And in our next interview, we can talk about like how the consciousness like interacts with the universe, like how I was saying, like when in the dream world where a person has an emotive feeling, how the sky ripples and changes according to their feelings. That's be an interesting like consciousness and how this universe interacts with it. That'd be a good thing we could get into. But the head, it's all so much is in the head, and the less fear, and that's hard to do because there's so many things that can affect you psychologically in those ways. But the less you can control the more you can control your feelings and stuff, the better you have. Because it's always best with a clear head for thinking and analyzing and seeing. And those emotions cloud up the reality. You can see the truth better if you're calm and straight, kind of Spock-like, if like that. That's the best way to be in those realms because you can observe them. Yeah.
Right. Eric is saying his physical body can't energize the room, and he was hoping that he could do something to get the energy in place, then to do the step to projecting.
He can also try it through a dream, but the physical body, no. If you can't do it, the dream would be the easiest way. The physical body, you would need a lot of energy. Like you'd have to go to a haunted house and take some of the energy from that house, absorb it from the house, and then use it. And it's safer to do it astrally or through a dream, because once it happens in that realm, then you can do it physically. But first it has to happen astrally or, in the higher realms, and then it'll happen physically. Do it as a thought.
Go ahead, please. Sorry.
No, it's all right, Dave.
All right. I got one final question here from Claudia, and then we're going to have to wrap things up. She says, many times she knows she is in a dream, and when she has a dream within a dream, is there a point in time where you always know you're dreaming in the dream and control a lot of them?
Is there a point in time when you can realize that you're dreaming? There's certain things that you can do to test if you're dreaming. And once you realize what things to look for, then it's easier to control. Like, here's an example. Just two ways to test if you're having a lucid dream or something more than a dream, or to test to see if you're in your astral or your dream-like body. You can look at a billboard, say like a newspaper or a movie theater billboard, and if the letters start to move while you're trying to read them, that's a dream or a lucid dream, because it goes against what is normal for us. Like you can look at your clock and the hands might be going backwards. That's a dream too. And or you can simply by standing take a hop, and if you come down slowly, that means that you're in a lucid dream or an astral state. So or you can look at the sky. There's a few different ways to test it, but looking at a piece of paper, words, or the hop is a good way to test and see if you're in that astral. And then there are other ways too, like the speed will be different, or the vision might be different. I was wondering how Claudia might see some things, because she sounds like she's had a few good astral experiences. But there's ways you can test it. Yeah.
She is very committed to her First Nations heritage, that's for sure.
Okay.
So I think she is so in tune with nature and absolutely everything spiritual that I think that's why she asks some pretty in-depth and brilliant questions, that's for sure.
She does. Yeah, and you can tell how much they know by the questions. And the Native Americans not the Native Americans, but the native people, like the American people of all the Canada and America, they do have a reputation for being in tune and not so modernized as the other groups are, and faithful to that same nature spirit. But the other groups are too, because no one group is way out there than the others. Not a whole group, because they have like superstars in every different group, big ones too. So that's good, and that's balanced, and that's how God has it. Each group has their They're deep ones, just at different levels of time and history, you know?
For sure. Eugene, I got to shut this thing down, but thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight and bailing my ass out from...
It was a pleasure, Dave.
Oh, I appreciate
Always.
it. And you know what? I really look forward to having you back on June 1st. That's going to be exciting. We're going to get into this, and then we'll get into some ET talk as well.
Yes. Things we can talk about.
Exactly. Eugene, you hold on the line here for a couple of seconds. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Where's that Bumblefoot? Let's get to it. There he is. Our music master, Ron Bumblefoot THAL. Bumblefoot.com. SpacedOutRadio.com to find all of his music. You know, if you say hello to him on social media, he will say hello back if you tell him you heard it on Spaced Out Radio. He loves that stuff. We want to thank Eugene Braxton. He bailed me out tonight after our original guest, Rob Morphy, had to call in sick. Well, his mother's sick, and he takes care of his mother. And you know what? You always got to take care of mom, right? So he gets a freebie on this one because he's never missed a show. Eugene Braxton was fabulous, though. You can go to his website, Braxton, that's BRAXTON, eugene.wix.com/America's Mystic. Pick up his book. His book is fantastic. It's called America's Mystic Solves Near-Death Riddle. I want to thank everybody on the SHR Media Network, over in Paranormal Forum, on the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, and on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles, as well as the SOR Space Travelers for being with us tonight. It's an absolute pleasure to broadcast to you guys. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, we can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, where you can find our archives for now, is Spaced Out Radio Show. Subscribe to that, and of course our website is spacedoutradio.com. We appreciate you taking the time out to spend with us. Tomorrow night, we're talking hauntings to wrap up the week. David Gutty, author extraordinaire, will be with us. He has a book out about hauntings in his own house, up to 70 different spirits. It's going to be a crazy show tomorrow night. I'm into it. Hope you are too before I head out for the weekend. Remember, next Tuesday, call in. It's my birthday. I want to spend it with you. So make sure you call in and we'll have a good chat. Not just to say happy birthday. I don't want that. Happy birthday, Dave. Great show. Bye. Don't want that. Let's have a good chat. This is about you and me. Let's have some fun. Take care. I will talk to you in exactly 21 hours. Good night.